Welcome back to the Becoming More podcast, episode number 28. Before we get started, I want to ask everybody to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Here in Becoming More, we go in depth talking to some amazing people about how they have changed their lives dramatically and have inspired others to work towards the same. Today, I am joined by Anthony DiDomenico. Anthony, how you doing today?
What's going on, Brett? How you doing?
I've had better days this Sunday with the Eagles
Well,
losing.
I mean, I've had a good day today. I don't know about you, but I know I'm happy with today's result.
Yeah, it was good that we had a reservation to have our daughter see Santa, so I missed the second half of the game. I didn't see after halftime in person. I just as we were leaving the mall, I caught the last minute.
It was close. I mean, it's funny because my nephew Luke is 8, and he's a Giants fan, but he doesn't know like what goes into being a Giants fan and the miserable losses you'll sit through. So the Giants were up like 13-7. There was a minute and a half left. And he's like, we got this. I said, me and my brother, my dad started laughing, like, hold on, it's the Giants. And I'm sure they'll find, and sure enough, they came out throwing with like a minute and a half left. And there was a turnover. Like they almost lost. They could have lost that game. I was like, what are they doing? Typical Giants. They would just like sit on the ball, run the clock out. They're throwing the ball with a minute and a half left.
Yes. So everybody's caught up. Like we were talking about the Eagles Giants game from 2 weeks ago when this episode drops. But when I saw that there was a fumble, I had heard there was a fumble because people were texting me and that there was a fumble. And I was like, oh, game's over now because it's at the end of the game. And then I saw that we got the ball back and I'm like, how'd that even happen? I didn't know until just now because I hadn't rewound. I didn't watch any of the game.
We had just went outside. We were watching through the glass. My brother was grilling. He was smoking up some wings and grilling some steaks. So me and my dad went out with him and we had a cigar and we were watching through the door and we're like, typical Giants. There it is. And we thought we were going to lose, but
Yeah. Well, we hitched our ride to Jalen Reagor catching balls, which is never going to happen. So that's why. I can't stand that guy. So as an Eagles fan, he just drives me insane. It drives me insane because I think I see Justin Jefferson doing all these things in Minnesota, and he was the pick after Jalen Reagor, who was solely picked because he was fast, not because he was a good receiver, but because he was fast.
Combine pick.
Yeah. His combine numbers weren't even that good, but they were blaming it on COVID. Because that was like early COVID. They're like, well, he was, he was off and he played at Big 12 school, didn't have a good quarterback. So they kept making these excuses and he's just not good and he needs to be benched. But they won't do that till probably week 16.
Okay. Well,
but yeah, I'm a salty Eagles fan today because I mean we were gonna like run the table and win the division, right?
Well, you thought that.
No, I never thought that. I knew we were gonna lose at least one game.
So you take probably the oversized books and that oversized ball and get rid of them.
My oversized ball is great.
I like your background. It's funny. Like I like books and football.
Yeah, I like the bookcase. It just never was quite where I wanted it positioned for this podcast. But anyway, so what I like to do at the beginning of the show for everyone is I like to ask everybody, what is the bottom line of your journey so far? Because Anthony said so.
Because Anthony said so. The bottom line is I want to be healthy, more than thin. If that makes it's weird. Like when I first started trying to lose weight, like as an adult in my 20s, I wanted to be thin. I wanted to be able to like take my shirt off and have abs and be chiseled and like, very superficial stuff. Like, because you're in your 20s, you think differently than, what in your 30s. I'm in my 40s now. And health is really the main thing. Like just staying alive and being able to do things is totally in the forefront. And as far as like with the physical, I mean, that's second to me as far as like, what I look like with the shirt off or anything like that. I'm okay with being, overweight and even having loose skin. I just want the health to me is the most important, like being a healthy person that takes precedent over the physical part as far as the superficial look.
Yeah, I can understand that because I feel like, I mean, we're a few years apart, but I'm in my late 30s. And, when you see a lot of people that have these huge transformations in their 20s, your perspective is a little different because you're already like beyond that point. And you're like, I just want to feel good. And like when I walk, I don't want like, when we started, well, when you were like 5'86", right?
I was 5'83". Gormy and Jarvis probably told you I was 5'86", but they're wrong on that one.
I hear it on the podcast you guys do together, so I always like to throw it in. But when I was over 6, and just walking, small distances was a strenuous activity
God.
compared to now. Like I was walking a lot. I know you were exercising a lot.
Yeah.
And now you can do so much more than you could do then. And I'm kind of with you on the same. Like I just want to be healthy. Like I don't need the 6-pack abs or
Don't.
the 24-inch pythons or anything.
I don't care about it either.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like I said, as I get older, I care about certain things more and other things less. And like that part of it, I mean, I look at it like I'm 42. Who cares? Like I don't. And that's maybe the beauty of, since I've been in my 40s, I care less about those like things I wear. What it's the winter now. It's like getting cold. When I'm not working, I'm in a tracksuit like 24/7, and it looks ridiculous because we had a
Tony Soprano style.
Well, we had a Sopranos party at my brother's house, and like as we all dressed up like the Sopranos, we all wore tracksuits, and all of us were like, the guys were like, "This is really comfortable." Like what? I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing this. This is the whole winter. This is it." I went out and I bought like 3 in the same color. My brother today was like, "Did you just buy that in blue?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is it. That's all. It's all winter. This is what's going on."
I don't blame you at all. Yeah, I now that I can shop at like J.C. Penney's Big and Tall instead of having to go to the DXL, and I get the clothes for way cheaper. That's my favorite thing.
I don't trust a JC. I don't trust if it's Big and Tall. If it's not in a regular store, I don't trust it.
Okay.
For me, the way they fit is not right. Like they make a DXL. They get me. They understand.
DXL gets you. Yeah.
They understand my shapiness, my lumps, and everything. Where JC Penney's, it just doesn't. For some reason, it never fits right. It's just always like either tight.
I don't know. The champion stuff fits pretty well. That's what I found. The XLTs are pretty good.
Congrats, Brett.
Congrats.
You and JC Penney's and your champion.
Hey, I'll take it.
Are you buying champion because Jarps wears it? Is that what you're doing?
No, I'm buying it because it's usually on sale. Jarps. Jarps is all Redcon now.
Yeah, I saw him last night. He had the sweatshirt on.
Yeah. Every time I see a post, he's in Redcon, so I don't think he's on the champion bandwagon anymore. They probably kicked him off. All right. So what I like to ask everybody, getting to know you a little bit, is a kind of background growing up and what led to the point where you had to make a change to lose weight. So like growing up, were you like a heavy kid, former athlete? Because we've had some of each, and like both are always interesting. So talk about that a little bit. Like growing up, like how did you eventually get to the point where you were in your like 20s and 30s?
I was always overweight as a kid. I was a heavy kid, but I played sports. I was very active. Good baseball player, football. I even played basketball with my friends, hockey. Like, we were outside all the time. I mean, I think that's also with my generation, kids that grew up in the 80s and 90s, you played outside. I mean, I know kids now are on their iPads and computers and everything, but no, we were outside. We were playing. I played Little League. I played always on 2 baseball teams at a time. Then got to junior high, played football. So there was, and I think that's kind of also what pushed the weight loss back even further. Like I wasn't worried about it because I was still doing these things I always wanted to do. It wasn't until I got to, my late 20s and early 30s that it was like, okay, now this is impeding on my life. But I had lost weight from 23 to 25. I lost 150 pounds. My first go around with Weight Watchers as an adult. So I gained it back, and plus a lot more than going into my 30s. And that's when I really started to feel it. And that's when it was like, okay, I can't do things that I want to do, and walking is a chore and all that fun stuff that, comes with putting on a lot of weight. But as a kid, I guess because I played sports and everything, it was just, I just said, okay, I'm the big kid, and that's who I am. And I went with it, and I was okay with it.
Yeah. I think a lot of us have been there as a big kid. Question: what was your position in baseball that you played the most?
I was a catcher and third baseman.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I played catcher mostly. It's where you can put the big kid, right?
Yeah, just put him back there and let him block and hit.
Let him block the plate.
And I played catcher in a competitive league, but third base I liked, but I had the range of a tree. I wasn't.
Yeah, I played first a little bit, and I would miss the ball sometimes. And they were like, "Yeah, you're just gonna be catcher."
Yeah.
Cool. So you mentioned that you lost the 150 pounds on Weight Watchers the first time, and I know if everybody that listens to your podcast knows how you've used Weight Watchers multiple times. So what when you went through the first loss and then you regained, then you went back to Weight Watchers in your 30s to lose again?
Well, I was on and off.
Okay.
You know, from when I joined as an adult at 20, let's see, so it was 2000. I'm trying to think, I was like 22, 23 years old. I've been on, it was until recently. So it was almost 20 years. It was on and off. It was constantly on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. And there was times with success, like the first time. And then I think it was around, 2000, between 2010 and 2011, before my brother's wedding, I lost 110 pounds. And then that was just because I wanted to be able to fit in the tuxedo and not have to worry about it. And then I put that back on. Plus, and that was really when I started gaining that weight, that was the rise to 583. But I was always on it. I was always on and off it, because I felt like, one, I really wanted to lose weight. But like, secondly, I also thought I have to be on it. I have to be doing something because I'm a big guy.
Yeah, I think a lot of us find that because like I know for me, in my mid 20s, I did those like some kind of smoothie that was like, oh, this will help you lose weight, and it does for a little bit, but then it's always that initial.
Oh, I've done like Xenadrin, Stacker twos.
Yeah,
I did all the pills for a while,
hydroxycut.
hydroxy. Yeah, and it's crazy because all those things, like, you read, like, people like would dropping dead on treadmills taking that stuff. I'm like, I was taking a lot of this stuff, like, and I was working out. I'm like, oh my god, like I dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, for sure. And so when you hit 583, and like, was there a moment where you're just like, I need to like go to Weight Watch? Like, was this when you went back to Weight Watchers, or were you currently on it and you just saw the number on the
So
scale?
I saw it when I went back, like the last time when I started losing weight. I didn't know how big I was. I knew I was high fives. Because the last time I went, I was like in the 560s, and I was like, I was like praying that I put like on just like 10 pounds. But what happened was I had a couple of moments. One of them was I did a gig at a firehouse. I'm also a stand-up comic, and so there was no parking right up front. And I had to park in the municipal lot. It was like maybe 100 feet away. And by the time I got to the door, my legs were burning, my back hurt, and I'm like, I was out of breath. I was huffing and puffing. I get up to the the floor where the show was, and I'm walking in, and my friend who ran the show goes, "Come here, you gotta look at the stage, because I don't think you'll be able to get up there." It was higher up, like they could like step up, but like I was no way I was doing it. So they got these steps, and then when I was on it, I actually felt the stage like buckling. And the weird thing, not weird, but like I'm telling jokes, and people are turning their heads, looking under the stage, like because they thought the thing was gonna come through. So that was a wake up, not like a wake up, but like I was like, okay, I got to do something. And then I told this story many times in the podcast, but I'll tell it here. I ordered like $30 worth of Chinese food one night, and after I ate probably most of it, I started sitting there, and like, when you're so full you can't breathe.
Yeah, yeah,
I
for
got like a
sure.
little
Especially the Chinese food.
Yeah, I was like, I'm like, this is how they're gonna find me, with like cartons around me, and like, half-eaten lo mein. And then I told my friend Nick, who joined with me, I called him the next day. I'm like, dude, we have to do something. So on May 1st, 2017, I walked back into WW and changed my whole life and the way I look at weight loss and food and everything else. And I had a good run with it.
Yeah, and I mean, so not to cut it too short, but you had lost over 200 pounds at your
The
peak.
most I had lost, I think it was like 217. The most I was down.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic, right?
Yeah, it was great. Absolutely. Yeah, it was fantastic. It was amazing.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because uh hitting I hit around the same amount myself before I had a regain recently. What were some of your like NSVs that you had, non-scale victories that you experienced during that 200-pound loss that really like helped increase your confidence or increase your drive to want to keep going and or just you're just like thrilled that this happened?
The first thing was actually being an active participant, like with my family and my nephews and my niece, and like getting down on the floor and being able to like, play with them and color and stuff like that. That was a big thing. I had, just the regular, the things that you take for granted. Um, like people get on a plane, don't realize how stressful it is for people who are heavier and getting that and not needing an extender belt, those kind of things. Basically everything it's crazy. Everything's a non-scale victory almost when you come from 583 and then you're on your way down. Just regular life was, you had moments where like, yeah, I was going to concerts again. I was going to Yankee games again. I was doing all these things that like people just like go do and don't realize that for some people it's you stress about every factor of it, like where you're going to sit, where you're going to park. Are there going to be seats that I'm going to fit in, or am I going to be able to have to stand the whole time? Can I stand the whole time? So those kind of things, when those things started melting away, that was probably this an all encompassed like non-scale victory. Like, yes, this is happening to, at the right time, and going to Islander games again. I'm a big hockey fan too. And, I got to see games and go to games in New Jersey, just next, the Devils, I got tickets, all these things I said yes to. And that I think was the biggest non-scale victory. And stuff. I didn't turn things down. I didn't say no to things. Because of my weight and because I just didn't think. I was like, yes, I want to do it. And I went and did it. So that was probably the biggest non-scale victory overall, besides the family stuff. Was going ahead and just saying yes to life instead of no and missing out on a lot of things.
Awesome. I like it a lot. I can relate to a lot. Especially like the going to games, because for the longest time,
audio games because they all stay.
Yeah, thank you. But I went to a playoff game a couple years ago after I was down like 130 or so. But even that at that point, I was just like feeling really good, and I went and I didn't like have to worry as much about the seat and the situation and walking from the parking all the way to the stadium, and we were in the upper deck because I was not paying $1,000 for a ticket for a playoff game. And
was this football or baseball?
Football, Eagles. Eagles Seahawks early 2020.
Don't remember it.
Yeah, I mean Giants have sucked for like a generation almost. So,
of course it will. Yeah.
So awesome. So we talked about NSVs. We talked about how much the Giants suck. One thing I wanted to talk about was your podcast, Keep Moving Forward podcast, which you recently renamed.
I did.
From the WW Bro podcast, which people might have heard or seen many of their friends on. So I was just wanting to have you tell our audience, like, why did you make the change from the WW Bro podcast to Keep Moving Forward?
Well, as my journey was going on, I always ended I end a lot of my posts with Keep Moving Forward. And that's not just something I always believe in, because to me, that's what I've done my whole journey, is no matter what happens, I can't look back. I got to keep moving forward. And as the podcast started going on, I didn't want to be pigeonholed in just weight loss. So it has to be about this. And people thinking it's just a podcast about WW. At first when I first started podcasting, I was very, very into being a WW ambassador. That was like a big goal of mine. That kind of went away, and just actually, I'm not even WW anymore. I do calorie counting and macro counting with, my Fitness Pal. And I think I stayed on WW longer than I might go back. I probably will go back at some point, but I needed a break. I stay with it longer because of the podcast name. And when I would have guests on, they were like, yeah, but I'm not on WW. I'm like, no, but it's your story that I want to hear. And that's what really the podcast has started to become. Like, even from the beginning, it was a weight loss podcast, but I wanted to hear other people's stories. I wanted to hear people that were on keto, that had the weight loss surgery, that were vegans, that were doing anything to better their lives. And I wanted to hear success stories. So I was talking to my friend Tracy Carnazzo, who is a very successful podcaster. She has she does a Teen Mom Trash Talk podcast, which is absolutely hilarious and fun. And so she's always like my podcast guru. Whenever I go to her, I'll go ask her all these questions, and she'll help get guests a lot of the times. And when she asks him, she tells people about me, and it's like, you have to do my friend Anthony's podcast. Like, yeah, but I'm not on Weight Watchers. And it's just that whole thing, like, yeah, but it's not about, it's about this. And they're like, well, yeah, but it's the name. So with moving forward with everything else in my life that's going on, I had a big life change this year. I recently moved out of a home that I lived in 41 out of my 42 years. You know,
Wow.
the only time I didn't live in that home was when I moved in with my ex-fiance. We lived together for a year. But I lived in the apartment in that house, my childhood home that my grandparents had lived in first, that my brother had lived in until he had started having children. And then so it's always been, families always lived in that place. And it's always been like, the hub of the family. That's the house that, my mother would take in anybody in the family if they needed a place to sleep, a meal, anything. So that's, the house meant a lot to me. So moving out of the house into an apartment, and just a lot of changes were going on. And like, I just took my own advice and just move forward with it. Just keep doing it. And I wanted the podcast to grow as well. Like, I was happy with what was going on, but I think there was more there. So I bounced the idea off some people and everyone loved it. And I made the switch. I made the move, and I renamed it Keep Moving Forward, because to me, that's what I'm trying to do. I have to do right now. Especially I had a tough year, and moving forward is the only thing I could do. I can't live in the past with it. So I wanted the podcast to reflect what I'm doing, what I'm all about.
Yeah, and I love the name, and obviously you changed it from WW. And recently you hit 200 episodes, right?
Yeah.
And like that's a good amount, because anybody that's podcast for a while, unless you're like somebody like Daryl Perry who has like 1,600 episodes, but having all those episodes, and like you have like a large catalog of people to reflect on, like, because I mean I've been on it and I didn't do Weight Watchers, and there's so many other people that do it, and anybody that listens to it, even if they hadn't been on it, they kind of get that it was more than just Weight Watchers, because anytime you listen to it, you hear other stories than just let's talk about Weight Watchers. And whereas you are talking about your own successes and setbacks within Weight Watchers at the time.
And the only reason I named it WW Bro was because that's a very popular hashtag with guys on WW. And I also wanted to, when I first started, be like, hey guys, listen, there's something we could do to change our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an option. And it just, because the WW women on Long Island would call me their bro. So kind of like fit into like what I was doing, but it did pigeonhole me, I think, a little bit as far as with the podcast and getting guests and stuff like that.
Well, with the new one, I'm hoping you get all the guests.
Got an exciting one coming up.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it, but
okay.
It's probably the biggest guest I've had so far as far as fame and popularity and what they've achieved. So
are you gonna do the thing where you can tell me off air?
No, I'll tell you off air.
Which is my favorite thing that happens on podcasts.
I want the pop when I that morning. That's what I want.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
For sure. Hey, that's awesome, man. All right. So kind of switching gears here a little bit. One thing I like to do with everybody is kind of come up with like another topic besides our own backgrounds to talk about. And one that we both have dealt with in the last year is dealing with regain, because I haven't really talked about it too much publicly. But in the last year, I've probably gained about between 30 and 40, maybe 50 pounds. Just because I had a lot of life. You had the life change of moving. I had the life change of, if you can hear, she's crying in the other room a little bit. And then also we're setting up to move in the next month. So it's a lot of like getting the house ready to sell it, because we have a mortgage, and then tomorrow we'll actually sign the papers for the new house. And so it's a lot of stuff.
Way to warm up me. Okay,
I'm sorry.
I'm buying a house, an attic in someone's house. I'm buying a whole.
I do like your soundproofing though.
You like that?
Yeah, I do. But anyway, so
in my bedroom. There's the allusion to everything. I'm not in the studio, in my bedroom. and you're like, oh, I'm gonna buy a whole house.
I'm in a hallway right now.
All right.
So not that much different.
Okay.
Sure.
The
So
Star Wars bed sheets are right over there, by the way. I'm looking right at them.
that's awesome. I'm looking at a wall. So I had a few things I wanted to ask you, just because I know these are some of the issues I've had as I've been trying to get back on track. Because we all have the proverbial we want to get quote unquote back on track, and then we stumble again, or we like do whatever.
Yeah.
We don't follow what we know we need to do, even though we've done it before. Because we both have lost a significant amount of weight, and yet we go in the opposite direction, and then we're kind of waffling back and forth. So how do you deal with the frustration of being at the same place you were well over a year ago now? Like for me, like right now, the weight I was in June of 2020.
Well, one, you have to stop that. That was a big thing for me. You can't compare. You're in a different spot. Because here's the truth of it. As far as physically, when you start putting weight back on, it's not the same when you're taking it off and at that weight. It's almost the opposite. I feel worse than, and I feel it coming back on. I feel the extra weight on. I had to stop comparing because I would do the same thing. Open up Facebook every day. And, because I've been so open and sharing, that's all my Facebook memories are, just like, milestones and this and that. And I'm like, I'm seeing the same weight I am now. And I remember, and it was, a few years ago, and I have to just you have to put that out of your head. You can't worry about that. You have to really be like, okay, what, because it's going to keep spiraling. You're going to be like, okay, well, I was there this time, and then I start thinking like, oh, if I really stuck to it at this time, I'd be here. And that's where the self-sabotage and the more spiraling happens. So what I do is just like, I'm like, yeah, at this point I was at that weight, and I'm thankful that I'm not where I was before. And I'm thankful that I have fight left in me. Like it's easy to go on and boast when you're dropping weight like crazy and things are working for you. It's hard when you're struggling, you're putting weight back on, but you're still fighting. I mean, that's how I look at it. I'm still fighting every day. It's not the same kind of fight. It's much more exhausting and tiring, but I know I don't want to gain the weight back and be where I was before. And I keep telling myself, okay, you're down X amount of weight. You'd be happy with this if this was just, the case. And that kind of helps level me a little bit. But to think about like, I was at this point on this date, and now I'm here at this date, and you start comparing, that's where that's a fine line there, and it's going to just be nothing but trouble.
Oh yeah, for sure. I only realized it because I almost never have any Facebook memories on my weight loss because I don't really post about it on my Facebook too much. Huh?
You have no memories?
I have no memories. I almost never post my Facebook, but at one point I posted when I hit a certain number, and then I shared that, and then that came up a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, or not a couple weeks ago, but I found it somehow, and I was just like, ugh. But it's just one of those things where you have to get. I'm not really focusing on it, but it just was one of those things where it kind of messed with me for like a day or two.
Facebook does that. Those memories, I'm telling you, I'm reliving right now my weight loss, my lowest point, when things started going wrong, and every relationship I've had in the last 10 years. All my every day, that's what you log into, and that's what you see, and it's crazy, but it can be self-sabotaging. I just have to look at it like, oh, I did that day. I'm looking for something cool. Like, what was the cool thing I did that didn't involve an X, weight loss, and my current spiral that I'm in.
Yeah, mostly I just try to find the memes that I posted that day. Or like occasionally, like if I went on a trip somewhere and then I saw like something that I did that was not anything related to my weight, and I was just like, oh cool, and then I see a picture of myself, I'm like, I look a lot better now. And that also helps reinforce where I am now versus where I was in like 2016, 15, whatever it was. So cool. So you kind of started down this road, but how do you avoid like a further stumble after you so say you're like focused on the Facebook memory, and you're like, man, and like all you want to do is like, maybe it's binge eat, maybe it's just like self-sabotage. Like how do you get back away from that to keep moving forward?
just trying to like, I think back to where I was, at my highest, and the thought of being there again is like crippling. It's like not just physically I'd be crippled, but like just like emotionally it would cripple me. Like I'd feel like, I did everything, wrong, and I'd be bad down on myself. So I try to like be like, okay, we're struggling now, but we're not where we were before. So again, I look at what happened the year before, 2 years before, 3 years before. I try to enjoy it. Like, okay, you did that, let's do it again. And with that mentality, kind of helps me like not go totally off the rails for the day. I mean, I haven't been perfect. I'm still struggling. It's not fun, but it's hard. I mean, some days are different than others. Some days it doesn't affect me, and some days I have to talk myself off a ledge, as far as like, going to the store and eating everything.
Yeah, I definitely hear you because I know a lot of it for me is just old habits of work because I in January when I switched roles in my company and I wound up being in a building I was at back like 5 years ago when I would constantly binge eat when I was at
Yeah.
600 plus pounds. And
Yeah, good vending machine there.
yeah, they have a vending machine there, but I almost never hit it. But I would like sometimes go to the cafeteria where they also have food that you can buy.
Let's
And
not lie. You went to the vending machine. We all went to the vending machine.
occasionally, not too often, mostly because it doesn't work half the time, so then like it just eats your money. But I'm just in like the same building where I used to be, and I used to always like just snack all the time. So then when I'm there, I'm like I really want like this snack or that snack or whatever. And it's a lot of the mindset stuff that I just need to like work through it. And I used to try tricks like, oh, I just drink a lot of water real fast, and then I'll be like, oh, maybe I won't think about it, or I'll go take a walk around the building or outside, and then I'll come back and I'll still do it because it's still there. And at times, sometimes I'm working like I was working a lot of extra long days because I was like trying to offset hours for taking off for parental leave and stuff like that too. And
Such
it
a
can,
responsible adult, Brad. Really are.
it can get it can just get really easy to like stumble,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Because it's just so easy, and you're just like, yeah, this bag of pretzels is only like 300 calories, and I'll just have this, and this will be it, right? And it'll be fine. It's only 300 calories, and then it like leads to more and more because I'm so done with those pretzels. I'm like, I'm still hungry. I still want something else. So yeah, so I feel like coming up with like a plan is usually the best for me. Because I usually if I meal prep and have all it ready, like I'll kind of keep on track at
Yeah.
least, and like I usually pack myself. I don't like. I think the worst thing you can do is try to just like totally restrict yourself. Whereas I usually try to have some stuff that I like whether it's like the sugar-free like pudding, like Jello pudding, or even like a small bag of like M&Ms, like the fun size or something. So it's something more than just all health, all quote unquote healthy foods, because
Yeah.
carrots and ranch dressing only go so far, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the thing. Like, you feel like when you feel like you're restricting yourself, I think that's where the problems start, because then you're like, well, no, I want that. Like you said, like if you let little things in and control it, I always find that's better than just like totally cutting out everything. Cause then like when that dam breaks,
Mm-hmm.
it's a free for all.
Yeah, because then you're eating like 3 pieces of cheesecake with dinner,
Yeah.
and you're just not stopping because it's just we get in these habits that we go back to old habits that aren't the greatest. All right, so I, I wanted to touch on that just because I know we both have experienced it, and it's good for other people to hear it because in the community often you just hear the highlights and not the what maybe negative things or like the setbacks that we have, because everybody has them, they just don't talk about them half the time. So it's almost the new year, which means I know a lot of people are going to be looking at 75 hard in January once again. And one thing you did last year that I thought was really good, like I thought was an awesome idea, was you did this version of the program that you came up with called 75 on. Can you just describe that a little bit for people so they know kind of the difference between 75 hard and 75 on?
Yeah. So I was looking to jumpstart myself. It was actually last like March, last maybe even later than that. And I was seeing everybody doing 75 hard. Like maybe this is the jump start I need. And I was talking to my buddy John Ziegler, who's a very funny comedian, but also um 20 something years as a personal trainer. And he was like, one, and I was telling him, like, it's 2 a days. And he goes, why don't you try going to the gym 2 days a week? instead of just 2-a-days. He goes, you're gonna hurt yourself. He goes, you're going to hurt yourself. And so I was like, you know what? Let me come up with something that maybe is very challenging, but still, is doable. Because to me, I think, anybody who says they did 75 hard without, not complete, without messing up the first go around, I think is lying. I mean, and that's just me. I mean, listen, it's hard. I didn't even finish my own challenge. I got hurt during my own challenge, like 37 days in, 38 days in. So mine it's 75 days of, you have to be on some kind of program. Doesn't have to be Weight Watchers, or it's just basically just watching what you eat, making sure you're having, sensible diet, and there's no cheat days, like 75 hard, the same thing. You have to read at least 10 pages of nonfiction, or 15 pages. I forget which one it was, of nonfiction. I like that one. That was actually a good one because it actually got me to read. Yeah, there we go, right there, the books. And one thing I added was you have to say like something nice about yourself.
I like that. Yeah.
Because I feel like with a challenge like 75 hard, you can get very down on yourself. And I actually talked to a friend of mine who they said to me, because they got hurt or they stopped around the same time I did. And their thing was like, I failed. I'm like, you didn't fail. I said, for 30 something days, you worked out twice a week, twice a day. You drank a gallon of water a day. You read. You did all these amazing things for 30 something days in a row. How is that a failure to me? That's not a failure. You had to stumble. Like for me too, like I did 37, 38 days and I got hurt. I physically couldn't work out anymore, and but I looked at it that way too. Like for 30 something days, like over a month, I read, which I never do. I did no cheat days. I drank my water. I did all these good things. And I'm proud of anybody who can complete anything like that. I mean, I've seen people actually make their own like 30 days or 10 days even.
Yeah, I've seen a few people do the like they take like a break after like the first like third of the like do it in kind of thirds, which just makes sense too.
Mine is there's no rules. Like that's the whole thing. Is like this is the outline. I did it because I wanted people to feel successful and not like a failure. Like that to me is like the worst thing you can do while you're doing a weight loss journey is have something that makes you feel like a failure. And listen, if I was like, super in shape, if I had like 0.1% body fat, if my abs look like a, like a washboard, if I had like an 8-pack and I was shredded and I was running marathons in my spare time, then yes, 75 hard would have been, a fun challenge. And I've seen people do it. And listen, if people get through that, I have so much respect for them. I'm not putting the thing down. What I'm putting down is the emphasis on failure associated with it. That if you don't complete this, you failed at something, which you didn't. You did something more than most people will do. And that's why I think that's one of the reasons why I started mine.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people say, I failed the 75 hard is because they'll put the image of the failed stamp or whatever on that, right?
Yeah.
And I'll see it. And then I remember there was one person I saw that said, I ended my journey on 75 hard at whatever they were at, like 40, 50 days, whatever. And I kind of like that version better because it's not like you failed it. It just ended, right? Like because you didn't get there. Or like one of my friends on Instagram and who I met in real life and she's been on the podcast, Rob, My Weight is History. He last almost 200 days ago now, he had been doing like this walking challenge, right?
I've seen that. Yeah, I follow him on Instagram.
Yeah, and he got that. He always gives me credit because he took that from me. But he had hit like so many days in a row. He was trying to hit a year, and then all of a sudden he missed like by like something like minuscule, like 10 steps from hitting like his number. Yeah. And so he had to start all over. And he when he did it, he didn't say that he failed. He just said, "Oh, I missed. Like I just didn't hit my number," and he just didn't check it and didn't know.
Yeah, because how is it a failure? What he did.
Yeah, because he was doing 15,000 steps a day, and he like 14,990 or something.
That's what I'm saying. But how's that? And even that day, how's that a failure?
It's not. But it's all about the mindset shift that we all get
He's got a
in
great
certain
mindset
times.
too. Like I've seen him. He's always in a good mood. Always positive. I mean, he appears to be. In
He's also an Eagles fan.
well, that's another strike against. He has one strike against him. Um, Listen,
Yeah,
it's not you. I mean, you chose that life.
you
I
chose
chose.
that life.
I
We
chose
were
winning
born
Super
into
Bowls.
it.
Yeah, I chose winning Super Bowls.
You
So
okay.
one more.
Uh,
Congratulations, big deal.
thanks.
Yeah.
So kind of getting towards the end of the show here. I always like to ask each guest like a hobby or interest not related to weight loss that they enjoy or they like to do or be part of. What would you say yours is?
Cigar smoker, and I enjoy it. It's kind of like my meditation. Social. It's social. It goes also very solitude. It helps clear my mind, relieve stress, and I enjoy it. I started with cigars. I was in my 20s. Actually, I was a teenager when I first started, and then I got into it in my 20s, and I went back and forth with it, but just recently in the last 5 years or so, got back into it again. And for me, I just enjoy the whole process of, either with if it's with family or friends or going down to my local cigar lounge and being a part of that. Um, to me, that's a good way for me to unwind and kind of break down, let the day break down and just relax.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not my hobby, but I have a few friends that also do it.
Yeah.
And they say similar things. Like it's just nice hobby to like. It's a nice thing that they can do to relax and like just um, do whenever they can. And I know I've seen you on some posts you share where you're watching AEW Rampage or
Big, big,
Dynamite on your
big wrestling fan as
tablet.
well. Yeah, I'll bring it down. And at the cigar lounge, I'll do everything down there. I'll write, I'll watch wrestling on my iPad, or I'll watch movies, or I'll just talk with the guys. I mean, it's to me, it's funny. I always describe the lounge like it's 1987. Like there's no politically correct. There's no PC environment. Um, it's a place where people can go and just be themselves and talk freely, and um, it's a fun hang. And again, I'll watch wrestling while I'm down there too.
Yeah,
Because I'm a big wrestling fan. Wrestling is on there too. You can add wrestling, watching sports, um, you know, all those things that tie in, and they tie in together because there's TVs there. So I'm constantly watching games down there too.
yeah, for sure. And yeah, and just having that atmosphere where you can just speak freely and not worried about getting like somebody freaked out because you said
Yeah.
something that's offensive, might be offensive to them in some stupid way. It's always a nice place to be because you don't have to worry about that. So all right, cool. Haven't had anybody talk about cigars yet, so that's a new one. I had plenty of pro wrestling and sports, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, and I get crap for it. I got a DM one time from somebody who's on Weight Watchers, and they told me that it's unhealthy and that I shouldn't do it. Then I went to their page and I saw them in every other post drinking the liquor store. So I
yeah,
said to them, I said, maybe that's not the healthiest thing you could do. And listen, and I'm not saying they're healthy, but I'm saying everybody needs a vice, and everybody you can't be perfect all the time. I'm responsible with it. I don't give them the minors. I don't I'm not pushing on anybody. I just everybody's got their thing. I'm not a drinker. Um, I don't do drugs. To me, how I relax after a hard day at work, I like to sit back, watch a game, and have a cigar. And if that's, I'm not hurting anybody.
yeah.
To
If
me
you're not
that
hurting anybody, it doesn't really affect
no, I'm
anybody.
not putting it out on someone's face. I mean, it's
Yeah, I always love the DMs that you get when it's like you're just living like doing your thing, and then somebody's
oh,
like
man.
has to slide in there and just give you their negative opinion.
Somebody told me that the cigars are making me gain weight. That's why I'm gaining weight. And I was like, well, I'm not eating them. I said, maybe it's the cake and donuts that I'm eating. Maybe that's making me gain the weight. And no, it's the cigars. I'm like, well, there's no calories in them. It's
Usually
leaves.
people that take in like cigars or cigarettes or whatever, usually they're losing weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. Uh, All right. So to wrap up the show, I always like to have everyone go through the what I call Brett's Corner. 5 questions. Everybody gets the same. Number 1, what movie, TV show, or event are you most excited for in the coming year?
One, I'm actually just waiting for. I haven't seen it. The new Ghostbusters. My brother saw it, loved it, and I'm waiting this. I'm a big Ghostbusters fan, and second to that is the Spider-Man movie. So those are the 2 things I'm really excited for.
Very cool. I just saw Ghostbusters a couple days ago with my brother when right on Thanksgiving night. But yeah, it was. I agree with your brother's assessment.
Okay.
I really liked it.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that and the new Spider-Man movie because Tobey Maguire is going to be in it. To me, he's a Spider-Man. I don't care.
So tomorrow tickets go on sale, and I'm pretty sure they're going to release a trailer with them in it, with all 3 Spider-Men.
Oh yeah, they're going to sell some tickets.
They're not going to sell some tickets; they're going to sell all the tickets.
Yeah, well, it's funny. So I saw a thing with Tobey Maguire. I think it was like TMZ or something. They're like, "Hey, Toby," he's like, "Hey, like, are you in the Spider-Man movie?" And he's like, "No." Like he was like, then like he's.
The only one that's confused me is Andrew Garfield, because he's really emphatically been saying he's not in it, and but he's almost convincing. Like he's not just like the normal.
No way they did this with bringing back Jamie Foxx and these other villains that were in those movies without him in it. They can't.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be in this movie.
So what I'm thinking is the moment where Doctor Strange says, "I can't hold them; they're coming through."
Yes,
that's when they show up.
Yeah,
I feel like not. Yeah, and I can't wait to see. I just want to see like Tom Hardy's Venom like eat Topher Grace's Venom.
Yeah,
that would be great because that Venom sucked.
Solve a lot of issues I have here.
All right, number 2. What are 2 non-health related goals you have for the next year?
To grow the podcast. That's one. It's always, for me, making that podcast better and bigger than what it is. And I, this is going with that. I'd like to take it on the road, so to speak, where incorporate like a comedy show with the podcast and that type of thing. That's a goal I've had for a while. Another goal is to get to, and this is going to sound stupid because it's but it's to get to the new Islanders arena and be comfortable, because, and I guess that kind of fits in with the health thing, but I grew up in the Coliseum, the Nassau Coliseum. Like that was my home. That was like, I'm losing a piece of my childhood with the Islanders not playing there anymore. People don't realize, like, the attachment we had to that place. We call it the barn for a reason, and we call it the barn for, like, it's like, for us, it's our dump. People can call it a dump. It was our place. And
are they demolished? Did they demolish it, or are they demolishing it?
No, it's gonna be open, but like, there's no reason to go there, really. I mean, nothing's gonna
be there, right?
Yeah. So they're not going to demolish it. They'll still have things there, but the Islanders aren't there. And like we always like say, we were raised in a barn. Like that was our, our thing. So I want to go to the new Islanders arena. And I guess it's going to have to kind of be like a health thing, because I want to do it and be comfortable there. Okay. And, I'm not gonna be able to go right away because I'm still like, moving and getting my finances, I'm paying twice the amount of rent I was paying before. So I'm trying to get everything wrapped around that. So when I go, I do want to do it right. I want to sit very close. I want to, experience everything. So that's, and I guess the non-weight loss goal for me is to sit and watch a game really close at the UBS arena.
Yeah, when you mentioned it was your dump, it reminded me of when we had the vet in Philly, because until that thing was demolished, that was like our dump. And then when even watching it get demolished on TV and seeing it, and you're kind of like, even though you knew how much of a hole that place was, like seeing it get demolished is part of like childhood, because you always saw it.
Yeah, like
and then driving down, I went to some Sixers games like right after it got demolished, and just seeing that rubble sitting there in a parking lot.
A friend of mine went to the Islanders game recently, one of the first ones they had there, and he goes, "Place is beautiful. It was amazing." He goes, "It's kind of weird that the Islanders play here." Because we had been like the redheaded stepchild to the Rangers. We are like the secondary team in New York. We've been a joke for a lot of years. We almost got scam. Someone else bought the team on a scam. Like, there's been a lot of things that happened with this team that if you're an Islanders fan, you're from Long Island, there's a special attachment to it. Like, it's your team. And so So seeing them have like their own, like this amazing place to play, it's awesome because it's we almost lost the team over not having a building. Team could have been in Montreal or Kansas City by now.
Yeah, so like one of the things that I'm not, I don't keep up with the Islanders by any
Mhm.
means. And for a while I thought like it almost seemed like they were going to move to Brooklyn.
They did. They what happened was, so the owner, this guy Charles Wang, bought the team in the early 2000s, and he owned this company called Computer Associates. He had a lot of money, and he put a lot into the team. And the Islanders were it's a bad situation because like he didn't even get money from his concessions. Like that's a bad deal that the kind of had with the Coliseum. Like the county got the concession. So he was like, well, we need a state of the art building. And he had this idea, they called the Lighthouse Project. He was going to build a new arena, apartments, shops, and this huge building that would be like the lighthouse. They called the lighthouse, what they called the Lighthouse Project. And the county like shot it down because they weren't ever going to get money for it. It became very political. There was a vote, and the vote was like the people didn't want it, the taxes, because Nassau County is very high tax rate to begin with. People did not want their taxes to go up to get this building, and the Islanders didn't have a place to play. And Brooklyn, the Barclays Center, kind of came in at the 11th hour, and we're like, "Yeah, you can play here." And everybody hated going there to watch games. It's made for basketball. The scoreboard wasn't even centered to the, if you're sitting in the stands, the scoreboard was off to the right. The players said the ice was horrible, and eventually they went back to the Coliseum until this new place was built. And John Ledecky bought the team from Charles Wang, and carried on that play. We're gonna get a home, and they did. He found an amazing place in Belmont, which is not horrible place to get to. And they built an amazing arena.
Awesome. Yeah, so little of it like was well known. I just saw them when they moved to Brooklyn. They're playing in Brooklyn, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's where they'll play it. Because
If you want to get a better understanding what like being an Islanders fan is, there's a 30 for 30 about John Spano, who tried to buy this team with a scam, and Kevin Connolly from Entourage did it, and it's really good, and you'll understand like what that why the kind of attachment that Long Islanders have to the place and the Coliseum and stuff like that.
all right, cool. I'll have to check it out. And when you said that like you're kind of like the second rate team to the Rangers, it's almost like being a Mets fan.
Yeah, my brother actually calls the Islanders the Ice Mets. That's what he.
I like that, the Ice Mets.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So question number 3. If someone came to you saying they were lacking motivation to stay consistent, what 3 pieces of advice would you give them?
I would just say, motivation is a funny thing. I would say be your own motivation. Don't, don't put your weight loss, the number as your motivation. You be your own motivation. What do you want to get out of this? What do you want? And don't put it on a number. I would tell people that these things happen. No one's 100% balls to the wall 24/7. There's going to be times where it's going to be a fight. And then the third piece of advice is the advice my dad has given me about weight loss and anything else really my whole life is that the time's going to go by anyway. And what are you going to do with it? Because he goes, no matter what happens, time will go by. You can't stop that. It's what you do with it that really counts.
I like it. Yeah. Very sage advice there at the end.
He's a very smart man.
Yeah. All right. Number 4. What have you discovered about yourself during your journey or transformation that surprised you the most?
How much fight I have in me. I never knew I was this much of a fighter because I was always very passive with everything. Like, with relationships, anything. I gave up easily. I'm lazy. By nature, I'm a lazy person. And I never realized that I had this much fight in me. That surprises me. The willingness to not give up and to keep fighting and to keep, pardon the expression, moving forward. That surprises me because I give up a lot of things. I've given up school. I've given up, myself a lot. But the fact that I can't stop this, and it just that is the biggest surprise to me.
Yeah, It's funny when I got asked this question similarly on another podcast, I said my drive, so I can kind of relate to that
Yeah.
answer a lot because it's true. It's when you've given up so many times on yourself throughout your life, like when you finally can do something like that's that amazing. It impresses you. All right, so final question. It might be a bonus question, but final question. If in 150 years science fails to save us and all that is left is a book about your life, what would the title be and what would the blurb tell us about Anthony?
Miserable and Magical. That'd be the name of the book. And the blurb would be a comedian who's unpleasant and somehow makes somebody laugh.
I like it. I thought for sure you're going to go with keep moving forward.
No, Miserable and Magical. That's
Miserable
fine.
and magical. All right.
You guys don't know me really from the before the weight loss days. You talk to any Long Island comedian, and they will give you the inside scoop about the miserable and magical of myself. That was actually one of my hashtags I used to use all the time, miserable and magical, because I really I have a short fuse a little bit. I also I don't tolerate like, fakeness or BS or anything like that. And as when you get into comedy, there's a lot of open micers who they're all about climbing and, trying to get ahead and just also, full of it. Excuse me. So when that's coming at me, I just have no filter and I just, say what I want to say or make the face I want to make. So miserable and magical is the name of the book.
I like it. My biggest problem is when I have those BS moment. Dealing with BS is not rolling my eyes because it's always my
Same thing.
my tell.
Yeah, you got it. Like there was people who were watching the video. Is this gonna be like a video of it or
Yeah, it'll be on YouTube.
Okay, let's see. One night I was at one of the comedy clubs and this guy was just chewing my ear off and I was not interested. And I didn't realize I was doing this. I was just going like this. I was like, I was like making the face. I was like, and the guy was my friend was videotaping me and showed it to me afterwards. He goes, "You cannot even try. Like, look at this." He goes, the guy's still talking to me. And I was like, as he's talking, I was like, it's like I'm in pain.
Yeah, I was I was in a meeting with somebody one time and like I literally rolled my eyes like 4 or 5 times. And I used to when I was a kid, growing up in back to wrestling, growing up in like the Attitude Era, I would usually get to I could get the Undertaker eyes almost. Like I almost get there. But I found myself doing like that a lot to people. And somebody one time just pointed out, like, you roll your eyes like 8 times during that meeting. I was like, and I didn't even realize it because I just do it so instinctively. And it's one of those things where trying to work on it so I don't do it.
I feel you.
I almost just close my eyes if I feel it coming.
Yeah,
I just close my eyes for like a few seconds just so I don't so they don't see me rolling them. But yeah. All right. Bonus question is, and I've asked this of the last person on the show as well. What was your favorite Christmas gift you got as a kid? Since we're coming up to Christmas here in a few weeks.
my favorite Christmas gift as like a toy or like what age range?
Any age, up to 18.
Up to 18. That's a hard one. Favorite Christmas gift. I'm trying to think back. I think it was a tie between like getting like a new like I got like a BMX type bike. Like when I was a kid, and to me that was like I don't know if you know the movie Rad. If you know that movie Rad.
No, I don't.
Dating myself here. And I thought I was in the movie Rad with this bike. It was awesome. It was like hopping curbs and stuff like that. The second one, I got a pair of Air Jordans in sixth grade, and I thought I was the coolest thing ever, and I wasn't. But those Air Jordans were amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. I think I got a bike one year, but not a BMX, but yeah.
Like a BMX bike. It was like, it was blue and white. It was awesome.
Awesome. Cool. And I know you kind of touched on that you're a comedian. Do you have any like upcoming dates you're going to be doing anything?
Nothing yet. No, it's I've been really focusing on podcasting since the pandemic. It was the comedy's been kind of slow for me, and I've been also kind of like cherry picking my dates and what I'm doing. But because like coming out of it, there was a situation here on the island that I wasn't happy in, and I kind of removed myself from that. So I take gigs now that I'm going to be happy in, and kind of looking at more that way. And podcasting has really been my most focal, my all my efforts are going into at the moment.
Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, makes total sense.
Yeah.
So awesome. So if anyone wanted to reach out to you on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, where can they find you?
Good. Okay. Yeah, they can find me over at Comic Anthony D. That's where to get me.
Awesome. I will include that in the show notes of this episode, as well as probably a link to that 30 for 30, because
Nice.
I want to go see it now, because
Yeah.
I love 30 for 30s. They're
No,
always
this is a
almost
really
always great. So I want to thank everybody for listening or watching this episode all the way to the end. You made it. Make sure you check out the show notes. Like I said, be sure to check out my website, becomingbret.com. One day it'll be updated. You can follow at Becoming Brett on Instagram and Twitter, and the show at Becoming More Pod on Instagram. Till next time, give us a 5-star review or DM me what you think about the show, and make sure you come back next week to learn how we can all become more.
Oh.